Folks, is this good boy becoming a bad boy? Duh. Hey folks, MasakoX here. Now, when it comes to content here on this channel, it's all about the good boys, it always has been. It's all to do with making the adventure all the more compelling. Dragon Ball is all about the redemption arc. Goku is all about that, seeing the good in something and wanting to keep it around for it to thrive and adapt to a new life. Also to, fight it again and have some more challenges, selfishly, but it's not entirely selfless, I will admit, but the intention is there, it's good. In any case, one of the battles that I find the most fascinating with is with Cell. And no, not before the Cell Mark II that we see in the manga. Cell would be the most excellent final boss for Dragon Ball if the original roadmap were true. And actually, in the round table, somebody made a really good point. If you swap Boo and Cell around, Cell would be a really good final boss. He would be the culmination of everything that had gone before him throughout the entire show. Our heroes would have had to face the past and overcome it. Poetically, it's fantastic, and a true feather in the cap to the legend of the Dragon Balls. Okay, I know. This version of Cell is different to what we got, the one from the future. For starters, he is fully ingrained in the past, with being the same protozoic embryo that we see in Jiro's lab, which Trunks and Krillin visit. But instead of getting rid of it post-haste, Bulma takes it in, the project, and takes it to full term, to see what would happen. With her additional modifications, we get a Cell who is much more wholesome and more willing to be part of the team. After years of strife and toil trying to prove himself, going through the literal school of hard knocks, Cell, now known as Android 21 in this world, is a truly impeccable member of the Dragon Team with 2 children of his own, Cell Juniors named Mita and Condra, mitochondria, if you know from your textbooks. However, as you might remember, the road to prominence within the team was met with rocky terrain back in the day, and we are now on the cusp of experiencing a lot of figurative bumps again in the coming tome. In the last part, the Tournament to Power was underway, and our good boy was being tested in various ways. His power was quite potent, and he was able to help in various ways, but he was holding back deliberately, and it was enough to get Freeza's interest, goading him into making a very rash decision. In order to feel truly valued, as Freeza would say, he had to tap into a power that he swore he would never resort to again in his life. And remember, he could live in theory forever. It turns out that an old friend might have been lying in wait all this time, patiently waiting for the moment when temptation would get the better of our good boy, and he could rise again and fully take control, sup from the cup of greed and the lust for power. As a result of this has garnered the attention of Jiren, whose mind takes him back to his youth, and quite possibly the mistaken identity of the being that he had set out to destroy. Jiren's mind went blank. As we mentioned before, he had completely lost control of his regular faculties. Nothing else mattered. All that he cared about was to wipe out this heinous beast, this malevolent creature that he believed to be the thing that had ruined his life all those years ago. All of the memories that he had tried to purge ever since he had to live through them directly. But despite this, the pictures in his mind remained clear as day. He remembered the village, but pretty vaguely. There were bits and pieces that remained foggy, but the overall blueprint was still there. The thing that occupied his mind the most, though, was the image that had haunted him to this day. The smoke coming out from the houses, its grey tendrils sliding their way up the pastel sunset sky. The contrast is remarkable. It would have been better if the whole village had, quite frankly, been razed, not a trace of it remaining. But he wasn't given that blessing. The monster didn't even bother to level the whole settlement, just carefully picking its target and leaving destruction in its wake for all to see. Well, whoever would see, whoever was left. Jiren's mind was warped and tormented with the careful precision and yet terrifying power on display. The people on the ground were left like toys, scattered around by a careless child after playtime. And the smoke was immense, lots of it, getting denser and denser it felt as the fires burnt themselves out, and that was the only thing that was going on. Jiren remembered now the smell and taste completely. This left a mark on him. Later in his life, he would see much larger examples, larger amounts of destruction, with whole cities and civilizations being leveled by a single attack, where there wasn't much left but rubble and ash. But this would make that seem easy. This part of his childhood, this hurt the most, more than anything. Everything was almost in its rightful place, except of course it wasn't. The villagers were gone. His people were peaceful, despite their immense fighting potential, but it seems that potential itself was enough to make them something's prey. The biggest insult to Jiren's memory right now was the fact that the village was only slightly different from before. Jiren's mind then turned to the creature itself. He could remember the gaze very well, all too well. There wasn't anything redeemable about this monstrosity. No hint of care, or kindness, or compassion. It was simply pure malevolence. Its shape, colour, stature, those things weren't as important as its piercing and venomous gaze. This gaze itself burnt into Jiren's memory, leaving an imprint permanently etched on his retina that could never fade, haunting him for eternity. More than his parents, more than his mentor would their memories. Those red glowing eyes were there to stay. So long, in fact, that he had to build a fortress in his mind around them in order to just do basic functions, coping. At first, it was easy to block it all out. With Master Gichin by his side, with all the other students, this seemed easier to do. Almost pleasant, satisfying. The preparations excited him, actually, gave him hope. Hope that he could find a new family to live with, start anew, rebuild his fragile existence, try to mend the wounds of the past, make something different, change things, something better perhaps. But hope and trust proved to be unsustainable bedfellows. Both could easily be shaken up, torn asunder when the circumstances changed. He learned about that the hard way, when the creature attacked again, and for the second time he stood there, helpless, unable to stop his master from dying. Jiren wasn't just a survivor now, he was the survivor, the only one left of his people. And his strength gave this monster the right to toy with his loved ones. His strength would be the way to cause its downfall in his mind, he thought. So, why couldn't he still hit that bug creature? Jiren was, needless to say, shaken up. For a moment, his mind had completely deserted him, and his body felt like a marionette outside of his sphere of influence, detached. He wasn't sure where he was in his mind, but slowly, and actually regrettably, he started to remember everything, where he was around him. He was fighting in the Tournament of Power, something he wasn't keen on doing anyway, but he was compelled to by his superior Belmod, who was the only one who had a hand over him. Then there was Universe 7. This lot had this bug creature that was now looking at him with red, glowing eyes. Just like Jiren shook his fist and tried to punch this thing, but the monster dodged out of the way. This wasn't right, not right at all. It didn't make any rhyme or reason. He could sense point blank that he was stronger than this thing. He should be able to wipe the floor with it. So what was this level of mockery doing? Was something else at play here? Did the likes of Universe 7 know about his past? How is that even possible? He only recently knew about the existence of multiple universes. Or was this their idea of a trick to try and throw him for a loop? Or was this something even more nefarious? Was this something from the inside? Was this Belmod's betrayal? Jiren looked up, towards his GOD leader, the Kai, and finally the other Pride troopers scattered around the vicinity. But they came up with nothing. They seemed equally confused. None of them had a clue what was going on here. But then the bug spoke.
Oh, what's the matter, big guy? You were doing so well just now. Don't you want to play anymore?
Asked the monstrosity, with a mixture of venom and sardonic pleasure in his voice. Venom that seemed to shock even his own teammates, and those two smaller creatures up there that Jiren figured out must have been his progeny were equally scared. Both Mita and Condra were terrified. They instinctively averted their gaze from what was going on and cuddled up to Beerus to protect them from what their father had become. And Beerus let them do so without question. He too was concerned. "This energy, it reeks of demonic powers. How did I not know this?" Whis wasn't as worried, but he was still paying close attention. "Indeed. How in the devil did that wind up in 21? Beerus gave Whis a case of the stink eye. "This is no time for wordplay, Whis. This is bad. Stoking the fires of that pride trooper is not a smart move." "So, you decided to show your true colors." Everybody was watching closely, with fear and uncertainty at the forefront. The only one that seemed to be rejoicing at this situation was the little pale white villain with purple bits. Freeza was overjoyed with all of the attention taken away from him. Good. Now that buffoon can do something useful for a change. Time to make hay while the sun shines. With that, Freeza slunk off from the battle scene and started to pick off some of the weaker tournament fighters while they were distracted. Sneaky indeed. In Jiren's eyes, though, his mind was clear. Clearly, Universe 7 had to resort to villainous tactics, dirty tricks, to win against him. How loathsome. But as with many things, trickery can fall apart. Only strength would prevail. Jiren shook his fist. Only strength was absolute. He fired his power impact. Playtime was over. The audience, as well as the other fighters, moved hastily away from the impact zone, as his immense power had managed to actually do some damage to the arena. The foul creature was lying there, with half of its body burnt away, but still alive. Surely, there was no possibility that he would be able to keep fighting, or even living like that, in that state. He hadn't met Cell before, clearly. To Jiren's surprise, the creature stood up and regrew the missing half of his frame. It seemed to cause a certain amount of pain for the creature, yeah, but after a while, this red-gazed villain had resumed its clucking, mocking Jiren once more.
"That was quite something, but you need to do more than that to take me down. Tell me something. This might be my mind playing tricks on me, but are you, the great and powerful Jiren, afraid of me?"
The sentence sent a chill down the spine of the other Universe 7 fighters. It seems their Bugman was out of their control. It was reverting to Cell. Jiren had no time for this, though. This time, the punch connected, and another, and another, and another. He kept beating the creature down into a pulp. He attempted to toss it away from the ring, but it managed to return, slowly regenerating his wounds. He tried this again and again, even with other fighters trying to interrupt the fight, trying to be opportunistic. But Jiren just took them down as if they were nothing. Well, they were nothing to him. He might have even punched the Pride Trooper by accident in the process, but that didn't matter. He failed 2 times. Now he had the chance to... But the creature laughed at him suddenly.
"You really are the strongest. I'll give you that. But as long as I exist, I shall remain supreme. And as long as I can regenerate, I will return. And keep on returning. You have only one option left, Jiren."
Jiren glanced at this pitiful monster. Now he realized what the plan was. If Jiren had no choice but to kill him, he himself would be disqualified, weakening his team immensely. Their universe would be erased for sure. And yeah, okay, maybe Toppo could carry them for a little bit, but without Jiren there, this team was worthless. He had to be honest, but he couldn't give up now. This madman was risking his own life, just for a tournament? This was also his best chance to take his revenge out on maybe this demonkind. To see those red eyes evaporate in a huge ki blast? Ooh, tempting. They may disqualify him, but Jiren was ready for that eventuality. For the first time, the alien could feel excitement. He started to go on the offensive against this monstrosity, even more so, with all of his might. He enjoyed it even more than he thought he ever could, especially since this wasn't the course of action that this vile fiend had anticipated. He must have taken him for a softie like Toppo, but Jiren was absolute. As he held the creature by the head, ready to blast it away, he heard a shout from the stands. "No, Dad! This isn't you! Fight it!" That took Jiren by surprise as he looked at the 2 small creatures again. They were staring at them again, in tears, trying to leave the stands but being held back by their GOD, Beerus and Whis. He remembered a small boy that learned a harsh lesson, Jiren. He remembered the village that was only slightly off. It looked like home at first glance. Well, life can be cruel. Jiren thought this to himself and put a hand against the Bugman's forehead. 21 was seeing red. He wasn't sure if this was down to bodily liquids or demonic influences. For some reason, he felt as if someone else was driving his own body. He felt the demonic powers in his body accelerate even faster, improving his strength, and somehow they were making even better use of his regenerative capabilities. He became an absolute meat shield. 21 didn't even think that was possible. His internal mind started to speak. So, some parts of you still survive in me, Deborah, he thought. A different voice responded to him.
Do you really think that you hadn't cleansed Deborah back then?
He didn't know if he was hallucinating inside his own mind, but 21 was looking at himself. Are you the other guy?
Oh no! The other guy was a sore loser and would blow himself up. He would not use this strategy. Think again.
21 was puzzled and felt that outside, Jiren was winning. But his victory in that case would mean his disqualification. He didn't understand why he had such a strong reaction towards him of all people. But this was giving him the edge over his enemy. And then he realized in horror who he was talking to all this time, 21. He was talking to no one. It was him, all along. It was a part of him that he had decided to lock out. It was easier to think that it was the original Cell or Deborah, not his own darkness. His deception was so good that he deceived himself. Through all this white, or technically red noise, he heard Mita and Condra screaming at him, realizing what his poor children had to witness. All of this. Not only that, but he now was going to turn Jiren, who clearly got some sort of panic attack right now, into a murderer. Stop! Before you kill me, tell me, why were you so scared of me in the first place? Jiren seemed confused. The creature sounded different now. Less demonic. In fact, not demonic at all. The red gaze was gone, but that could have been another trick. Tell me, please! I don't want to fight anymore.
A creature like you took everything away from me. My family and my master. Now I'm going to do the same to you. Do you find solace in your friends? You assume a lot. Trust is a very fleeting thing, demon. You should know by now that the only thing that matters is strength.
And as such, Jiren started to slowly charge up his attack.
Wait, don't! Just toss me out of the ring. So a demon and a coward. No, I don't want my children to see this. It will be necessary. This will teach them a lot about life and how it works, says Jiren. You deserve to face Goku and Vegeta. You're not a murderer,
21 says, but Jiren looks at the creature puzzled, but he still scoffs.
Don't worry about me, Bug. I will defeat them myself and get my wish.
The creature smiled at him, but he couldn't see any trace of deception or sarcasm.
You want to bring your loved ones back, don't you? That's none of your business, fiend. Then, I wish you luck, Jiren. Be gone.
But instead of blasting him, Jiren tossed 21 out of the ring. Those who watched closely could realize that he did it much more gently than they expected. Jiren looked at all the fallen opponents and how the tournament was moving forward. He was again his stoic self. But just as the village, some details were off. And that's where we're going to be leaving things for right now. So what do you folks think? Do you feel that 21 has conquered his evil demons? Will Jiren's destiny change from the original tone? Leave a comment below and let's get this discussion going. And I shall see you in the next video. Catch you later!